feel like every time I sit down to start a video, I feel so awkward, even though I've been doing this for 3-ish, 4 years now? Who knows? Time is relative. Hey guys, I'm here to talk about a different topic than normal. Usually if you're here and you know me, I'm talking about the books I'm reading, and now I'm gonna talk about the books I work on, kind of. Before all of this went down and the world was on fire, I was contemplating how I wanted to come back to my YouTube channel. It was not gonna be like this. It was not gonna be the result of a pandemic, because for the past 2-ish years since I've started working, it's been really hard. Nobody told me that my online presence was an extension of the company, but in a way it sort of is, especially because I do keep handles in my socials so that people can find me. But this is all getting ahead of what this video is supposed to be. I am gonna be telling you guys how I got my job in publishing. I currently work at Penguin Random House. If you've never been here before, I'm from Canada, I live in Toronto. I work at the Penguin Random House location here. So I've been there for 2 years now. I started my internship there in April of 2018, and I started working full-time in July of 2018. So there's a little bit of a gap still left from when I started my full-time job, but I've been in those offices for 2 full years. Well, in those offices in the loosest term. And I remember when I was looking to get into publishing, because I always knew that was what I wanted to do, there wasn't a lot of information online. It is a very opaque industry. Like, it's so hard to figure out how the hell you get into publishing. And a lot of it's luck. I'm gonna preface this video by saying a lot of it is luck and timing and things you cannot control, really. I wish there was more content of like seeing the behind the scenes of people who worked in publishing, so I would have more of an idea of what going into this career would look like. There are 2 people that I watched and I still watch religiously, Lena Norms and Sana from Books and Quills, I think, and they both work in the UK and they both work for publishing houses in the UK. So I watched their content because they did some stuff about working in publishing, and that was really interesting and really helpful for me, even though some of the stuff that they go through won't translate to my particular industry, because every industry is different based on where you're located. I just wish there was more information out there, especially for people of color in publishing, because there are so few of us and it often feels like you can be like the sole person in the room. There's a book coming out about being the one Black person in a company. So I wanted to be like more personal and just sharing my story in case anybody who's looking into publishing wanted like a little bit of insight into how I got where I am, because I got a lot of information when I went to school for my certificate in publishing, but that isn't necessarily what people are looking for anymore. They're trying to change where they look for people to work in publishing now. So this is for anybody who doesn't go through the traditional path that I ended up going through, who just wants an insight into what it's like to work in publishing, specifically in Canada. Put a huge asterisk there, because what I say is not going to apply across industries probably. So let's start with a little bit of background, maybe. I think that's like the easiest way to start this off. I started reading at 7, like many other people, and I've said this multiple times on my channel at this point, I'm pretty sure. I started reading with Harry Potter. And so from there, I always loved reading. Getting into writing, I was around 14 and discovered fanfiction.net, which was life-changing. I started writing Harry Potter fanfiction for like a good couple of years, and my mom was always really supportive of my writing. Like, she would bring up to my English teachers at school when they had PTA meetings how she wanted to be able to support me and find different ways for me to pursue that as a career if that is what I wanted, which I'm forever grateful for, that I have parents who do support the fact that I want to work in the arts, even though it's very not well paid is what I'll say. It is a very not stable situation to be in. Like, the arts will always be around, but we are not paid for the work we do, because like there's sort of a moralistic approach to working in the arts, and that does not equate to sometimes livable wages. I'm very lucky in the position I'm currently in to be doing this, but that's something that I do have to mention. I always had that encouragement, and originally I wanted to be an author. I wanted to write books because I just loved writing so much, and I'm not saying that's not something that's still relevant. Like, I do still really enjoy writing when I do get the time to do it. I don't know how I clued in on the fact that it probably is not like the solid path of choice. I never subscribed to the whole idea of a starving artist for your work. I was like, no, feed me. So I was like, I need to have like a stable job that I can do and make money consistently, benefits. I didn't know what benefits were at 14, but I was like, I need to be able to like have a job and make money. Writing, in the future, maybe I will get lucky and get published and be able to do that full-time eventually. But in the meantime, what can I do? What am I interested in? And I thought lawyer for a minute because I was really good at memorizing things and I'm really good at arguing. But then I was like, nah, if I can't like write full-time immediately, why not just work with books and work in publishing? So that's what I decided to do. And I'm one of the very lucky people where I just knew. I knew what I wanted to do. There was no like confusion about it. I was never uncertain of what I wanted my future to be. All of that long-winded thing to say is I always knew I wanted to work in publishing. It was just a matter of figuring out the steps of how to get there. I just knew I needed to set like goals. I needed to set goals, I needed to have a plan, and I would work toward being able to work in publishing by like set age. So it started from there at 14 when I was seriously thinking about my future, because in the Caribbean we do something called the CXCs. Can't remember what it stands for, but it's like these exams we take in order to do A-levels later on, and basically that is like our big exams of like, how are we going to get into university, what are you going to be studying in the future, what's your career going to be, like we're thinking from that age what we want to do. And that's where like this whole idea of publishing came up, and lawyers and all that stuff. I decided to move to Canada because I knew if I wanted to work in publishing it would not happen in the Caribbean, because we do not have, as far as I'm aware, at the time when I was 15, we didn't have publishing houses in Barbados. So I was like, well, I am a dual citizen. My dad lives in Canada. I'm going to move to Canada, finish high school there, because it'll be cheaper for me to go to university in Canada if I'm a Canadian citizen and if I have an Ontario diploma. So that's what I did. I picked up and moved to Canada at 16 years old. I helped with the yearbook in high school, and I took creative writing classes and just really tried to stay with books and doing that kind of stuff, because I knew ultimately that's what I wanted to do. My English teacher was convinced that I was going to become an English teacher, and I was like, I have no patience for teaching people. I learned that very quickly when my friends would ask me for help with stuff, and I would get frustrated when they didn't get it. And I think it's just because I couldn't explain things well, to be honest. It was probably more my fault than theirs. I applied to 3 universities. All of them were in Toronto, and all of the things I applied for were all English related. I applied for a straight up English degree at U of T, which is one of the more prestigious schools in the Toronto area. I applied to Ryerson for journalism, I'm pretty sure, and I applied to York University for English and professional writing, which was a double major. Realistically, I'm saying this now, it doesn't really matter what university degree you have. I don't know if I would say it doesn't matter if you go to university at all. Unfortunately, there's just like this elitism to publishing still. I feel like the education aspect of it is because they want you to speak their language in a way. They want you to come from books at the same perspectives that they came from books at. An educated middle to upper class person is like very much traditional publishing. Getting a university degree was like paramount. I knew I had to. It wouldn't have mattered what degree in university I did, as long as I did something there for that like class aspect of it. If you read Sally Rooney's novels, I feel like I'm always mentioning her, but she does point out the sort of elitism of getting into tertiary education, and it's true. I decided ultimately to go to York because I wanted to do the double major, and I was just really excited about York. I think somebody emailed me directly being like, we're so excited, we hope you like choose us or whatever. I thought that was really nice. Flattery does go a long way with me apparently, as at least at 18 it did. I also was really interested in their professional writing program because it divides into 3 streams. At least it did when I was there. It went into the book stream, which was you learned about book publishing specifically during your 3rd and 4th year, or it went into journalism, which was called something else, or it went into educational. So I went to York for 4 years. It was a great time. I learned a lot of theoretical stuff about publishing. I was really lucky that one of my professors that I had in 3rd and 4th year worked at McLellan and Stewart, which is one of like the bigger like Canadian publishers. They published Margaret Atwood. They're now part of Penguin Random House Canada, so everything came full circle, but he had worked there back in the beginning. One thing I will say is like that was the point, like I noticed in high school, but this was the point where I realized for the rest of my life I was going to be in spaces for the most part where I was in minority, where there were not a lot of people who looked like me or had the same context or lenses as me when they were looking at books. I, in my final year, applied for a couple entry-level positions. I think most of them were at Harlequin because they were looking for a lot of copy editors. I feel like I saw those posts a lot, and I got no bites, unsurprisingly, because at that time they were still looking to hire people straight from the certificate level programs, and so I was really tired of being in school, and I decided to take a year off, and I just made a YouTube channel. I made a booktube channel. That's when I started this here thing. I thought it would be useful maybe in the future, if I'm being quite frank, to have some sort of following on the internet. I just was like, I thought like it might, who knows? I am so fucking thankful that that thought crossed my mind, because it did really help. I went back to school in 2017. You'll have to do your own research about where you are, about what programs there are, if this is the path you want to take. This is very traditional. They are changing where they look for applicants for internships and for jobs. They're trying to diversify the staff so that we're not all the same, with the same level of education, with the same lens and cultural understandings of things. I applied to 2 programs. I applied to Ryerson's night program, which was like you could go to classes at night. A lot of them were online. I think you had like 5 or 6 years to complete the program. program, and I also applied to Centennial. I was like reading up on programs, and I think Centennial mentioned that 85% of their students ended up being hired in full-time positions after their program, which I'm gonna spill some tea right now is not accurate in the slightest, but I ended up going with them because they had an internship that was part of the program, which was what I thought would be most useful to me, get me in the industry, get me meeting people in Toronto, and hopefully a job would come out of it that way. So I went to Centennial for a year. Part of that year was broken up by a strike. I was in a 1-year program, and a month out of my program, 5 weeks to be exact, was a strike, and we weren't sure if we were even going to be able to finish the program, if we were going to have time to catch up. I might have had to start over, and I was very, very worried that entire time. I tried to take it with like optimism and be like, this is time for me to like spend on my YouTube channel. I get to travel, I get to see people. I went to Y'all Fest, it was great. But like through all of that, I was very concerned about my future because I had a plan. I was gonna get this certificate sorted, and then I was gonna get internships and start working. And I was like, am I gonna have to set this off another year? I was very concerned at 22, being like, I'm gonna be so old when I get a job. Looking back on it now, I'm like, you are a wee child. I was so hyper fixated on my age for some reason, and getting job and getting sorted. I had so much more stress than I needed to have at the time. We ended up having classes until the 23rd of December. The one great thing about the Centennial program is they introduce you to so many different aspects of like what there is in publishing to do, because there's so much more than people think there is. It's not just editing, guys. I swear. If you are thinking of working in publishing, it is not just editing. There's so much more you can do. There's so many different elements, and that could be a whole video in itself. That helped me realize I either wanted to work in editing, mostly because I just have a natural talent when it comes to finding shit that's wrong on a page, or marketing, because I just had so much fun like making design stuff for marketing and advocating in a way, because like this here could also be considered marketing if you're paid for it. And as I mentioned, we had an internship, which is the main way you're gonna get a job in publishing. You're gonna start with an internship, meet people, and those people are gonna think of you when jobs come out. I applied for internships at 2 places. I feel like I'm always like, I applied at like 1 place, at 2 places. I applied for Doubleday Canada, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House Canada. I mainly applied because everybody was applying. Like if you did, this was one of the few big publishers in Canada. Like if you don't apply, like just shoot your shot. There's Penguin Random House Canada, there's Simon & Schuster, but that's very tiny. Like they are a very small office. And there's HarperCollins. HarperCollins, I think, also had an internship, but they posted their application a lot later, and I already had my internship at the time. And SNS didn't have anything at the time when I was applying. So I applied for Doubleday, totally expecting not to get like, and not to hear anything back, just because of the previous experience I'd had with Harlequin, and that was for an editorial position. And then I applied for a sales and marketing internship because I really liked the professor for that class, and it was at the place she worked at, where they represent certain publishers who don't have a presence in Canada, so they sell their books on the behalf of those publishers. Part of the whole internship process, like applying for internships, my professor at the time at Centennial said during one of our classes right before we started interning, she was like, oh well, diverse people in this class, all 6 of us, we're probably gonna have an easier time getting interviews because I still can't believe she said this, because they are looking to diversify the industry. So like that was the reason we're gonna get more interviews than other people. I got interviews at both places, but by the time I got the interview for the sales and marketing position, I already had accepted my internship at Doubleday, and I felt very awkward bringing it up with people. Like I wouldn't bring it up unless somebody asked me, because it felt very much like I got this because of my race, because I am biracial. Like I was like quirky on the page because I had everything that a traditional person in publishing has, like a regular applicant. I just had like this extra flair because I came from a Caribbean island, you know? So let's talk about internships. The process was very quick. It was quicker than I expected. I expected to have more than 1 interview, but I only had 1. It was with the editorial assistant at Doubleday Canada. I went to the Penguin Random House Canada offices and felt very intimidated. They have a fancy ass elevator that I did not understand at the time. Looking back on it now, I was like so excited to be there. And yeah, so she interviewed me. Part of the application process was writing 10 books that I had read recently, and most of them I didn't even realize at the time happened to be Doubleday books, because their list just really is my shit. It jives with me. Like they do Kevin Kwan, they do Taylor Jenkins Reid, they do Jassy. Like it was just like a bunch of authors that I had already previously read and really liked, and that definitely worked in my benefit. And I ended up interning there for 9 weeks. But the internship program has changed at Penguin Random House Canada since I've been there. We are starting a program that runs for 6 months now. I was paid an honorarium program of $100 per week that I was interning there. Now people are going to be paid just above minimum wage. They're going to be paid hourly, which is fantastic and a great step forward. I'm so excited for like future interns. I'm so excited for them. Honorarium was great. I got to go back to Barbados. I paid for my ticket with that money, but I also was very lucky that I had somebody else paying for my CTC passes and stuff. I did a lot of reading. I would read submissions that they were sent by agents. I would read submissions that were submitted without agents, called the slush pile. I would write reader reports, which is basically me explaining why I would recommend us publishing this book or I wouldn't. And a couple of those ended up being meetings because I either really excited them about something or I brought up some points that they wanted to discuss further. Yeah, it was a lot of reading. I got to sit in on editorial meetings, and the blessing, the true blessing of that program were the other interns I met. I met one intern, her name is Eamon. She does not watch these videos, thank God, but I met her through Penguin Random House Canada because we were both interning at the same time. She was interning at McClellan Stewart. Our desks were like right across from each other. At the time when I was interning, we would meet up for lunch like at 1 p.m. every day, or like on the days that we could individually, and I really enjoyed getting to hang out with people all going through the same things you were as like an intern. Eamon and I are still friends, and I'm gonna get into like stuff that we do together later. I also was lucky that I knew Hannah, who works for Cook McDermott. She works downstairs. They did the rights for Penguin Random House Canada, and I just happened to know her because she is also a booktuber, and I had been following her for a while and I decided to interview her for a project I was doing for my Centennial program. So like when I found out I was working at Penguin Random House, I remember her saying that she worked in the same building, so I reached out to her while I was interning and I was like, hey, we should like grab coffee or something sometime. A big part of publishing and working in this industry is just making those connections. Networking is the grossest way to describe it, but like just hanging out with people, getting coffee, getting to know them, getting to know where they've come from. That was a big part of my internship. I had one-on-ones because my mentor set that up for me. She was like, oh, you should send out an email and ask everybody if they want to grab coffee, and I did. And that is actually what led to me getting a job, because I had a coffee with the marketing lead for Doubleday Canada. I mentioned that I like worked on YouTube, and that was also part of my application. I mentioned that I had a YouTube channel, and I put a link in that led people to my channel, and people have been watching my stuff at work, which is wild to me. But right around the time where my 9 weeks were ending, I sort of expected that I would be getting another internship after this one ended. I was fully expecting like, oh, I'm gonna use my money, I'm gonna go to Barbados for a month and then I'm gonna come back and either immediately look for another internship or apply for some jobs. Like I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to do at that time. That was like the first time where I was like, like I could do really anything at this point. Me and my mentor were meeting because we had weekly meetings about like what I'd been up to, if there was more work that I wanted to do. And I had mentioned to her that I was interested in marketing, that was the other aspect of the industry that I was really interested in when I was studying. And she knew that I ran a YouTube channel and that I was always on fucking Twitter. She knew. So she heard that they were still looking for a social media coordinator at the company because they'd already found one, and they were still looking for this other person to start around the same time as this new coordinator, and they just could not find that other person. Okay, and she thought about talking to the marketing lead and like suggesting me if I was interested in the job. And of course I was like, social media and publishing? Hell yes, like I already run a YouTube channel, like that makes perfect sense. I had another coffee meeting with the marketing lead, and I sort of mentioned like why I would be interested in this kind of position, what I brought to the table in terms of like I have editing experience in terms of videos and photography. I already know how to take book photos. Here is my Bookstagram. Look at what I used to do. All of those photos are gone now. I've gotten much better at taking photos. I will say my skills have definitely improved. And she suggested me to the manager for social media at the time. So I was sent an email asking if I wanted to apply and to fill out this form. That was about a week before my internship ended. And like everybody knew when my internship ended. My mentor made that very, very clear. Like, yo, she's leaving. Like she's going to a different country. She's not going to be around for interviews. So I sent the application in where they asked you to like fill out like the basic stuff and ask a couple questions about what your handles are, what platforms you prefer to use, that kind of stuff. And then the next day I got an offer for a first interview. To prepare for that interview, I read so much on online marketing, on social media strategies. Like I prepared the shit out of myself for this interview. I learned things that I had not learned in programs, and it wasn't like specifically to publishing. Like that's the important part. A lot of this stuff that you're doing outside of the editorial side is applicable across like industries. I remember I complimented my my nail manager's glasses. I was like, oh my god, I love your glasses, where did you get them from? And I made the joke of like, that was like my go-to joke at the time for interviews. I'm like Monica from Friends. I'm so anal about my organization. I didn't say anal, but I was like basically like that sort of like, I really love being organized kind of stuff. But I also didn't hide the fact that I thought that the industry had a lot to improve in terms of diversity. I spoke about it on my channel. I gave them my channel when I was applying because they asked for our social media. So I was like, here's my YouTube. And one of the girls that was in the first interviews was literally watching my videos when I came upstairs. I heard my voice and I was horrified. I understand some people do find it uncomfortable to talk about that kind of stuff and they don't want to rock the boat. So it's just a matter of choice, because it is better to not work somewhere that wouldn't support you being vocal about these kinds of things. By that point, there were 2 days left of my internship. So the next day I had another interview, a follow-up, but part of that second interview is supposed to be an application process, because part of the job that I was doing was going to be a lot of photography, a lot of copywriting for the posts, and they want to make sure that you can do that aspect of the job, but that you can fit different voices depending on the imprint. So I had less than 24 hours to prepare an application that people usually get 2 weeks to do. I ran around Toronto like my ass was on fire. I chased the light looking for the perfect photos. It was also spring, so the sun was setting at like 5 p.m. It was a lot. And then apparently what really sold them on me was the fact that I was talking about like chasing like golden hour, and that I actually knew what constituted as a good bookstagram photo. I had a third interview the next day on my last day of my internship with the VP of marketing, but I was terrified because like that's such a high up person in the company. I swore that I fucked it up. I was so devastated leaving that interview. I thought like I was so awkward. Of course she wouldn't want to hire me because I was like a weirdo. I went back down to my desk, packed everything up because I was leaving half day. I'm leaving for my flight for Barbados tomorrow. I have to go. I have to pack up. So it was like a very not tearful farewell. It was a lot of like, hey, I'm really stressed. Don't know what's gonna happen. Might see you, might not see you. I have to go. I came back from Barbados a month later, hadn't heard anything from them. Clearly by this point they would have contacted me, I swear. It's been a month. Like if they hadn't contacted me now, that just means I didn't get it. Whatever. I started hanging out with my friends again. I was like, whatever, this summer I'm just gonna take it for myself. I'm gonna relax. It's been a stressful year. I'm just gonna chill, enjoy patio season, and then I'm gonna start looking for jobs in the fall. And then a week after, when I'd made that resolute decision, I got an email from my manager being like, yo, we want to offer you the position. Can you start next Monday? That was for social media. Like I said, I was a social media coordinator, which was basically I posted for 2 imprints. I did that position for about a year and a half. And now I currently work in consumer engagement, which is a different role. I still do social media for the corporate account. So if you interact with Penguin Random House Canada on Twitter or Instagram, it's me. Hey, what's up? Hello. Or my manager. And I also work on the website. So I write things like monthly horoscopes where I tell you what books to read based on what's coming out. I really do enjoy my job. I'm very lucky that I got into marketing. It's like fast paced and exactly what I need at the age I'm at. But I will say my straight path, that is not the traditional trajectory. That is not the trajectory for most people that I spoke to while I was in Coffee Buddies. A lot of people don't get a job right away. Like I said, that 85% thing that I was promised at Centennial, I was one of the lucky people from my program that got a full-time job. I can think of 4 other people off the top of my head who have a full-time job at a publishing house / magazine. One of those people that works in a magazine. We were the lucky ones who just happened to get these jobs because of the timing of when we were finishing our internships and the people we met. This is what you want, not to get discouraged by the fact that it doesn't come easily, because goddamn, I was blessed. I was lucky. Like, I think so often how lucky I am to be 25 and working toward like the career I've like wanted. And I will say a lot of what I was able to do was privileged. I was able to take a gap year and start a YouTube channel, which helped further along. That I didn't know it was helping, but I was able to just like not have to worry about the fact, like I didn't have to worry about working. I was just like, oh, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel and start writing for a year. Why not? And I was lucky that I was able to take an internship that was an honorarium and not paid hourly. I didn't have to worry about paying for rent. I didn't have to worry about paying for my TTC passes. I didn't have to worry about paying for food. Like I am continually so lucky. That is one of the difficulties about the industry becoming more diverse, is there is such a class barrier to getting into this industry. It's something they're slowly trying to combat and like change by the way they're changing where they look for interns and like paying them more. Hopefully I see within my lifetime of working in publishing that it does change and that we get more diverse people that aren't just in entry-level positions, because that's what I find is a lot of people end up in entry-level positions and then they get burnout from working in an industry where they're a minority and where they're constantly fighting for changes and constantly feeling gaslit by things people say or books that are published. And I have been trying to help push that change along because like I mentioned, my friend Eamon and my friend Hannah, we, along with another friend who is also a booktuber or was a booktuber, sis, you need to post a video please. The four of us decided to start a little collective group called BIPOC in Publishing, and that is for Black Indigenous people of color in publishing in Canada, where we just wanted to create a space because we found so much comfort in each other and coming together and being able to be so very candid with each other about the struggles. And we wanted to create that kind of space for all the other people of color also working in Canadian publishing, because there's not a ton of us, but we're all also scattered to all these different companies. It can feel so insular and isolating, and you forget that there's other people also going through the same thing. So we started BIPOC of Publishing to connect everybody, to hopefully in the future have a mentorship program that we were going to start this year that did not happen because COVID happened. You'll be meeting Hannah and Marina in the future because I've already asked if they would be part of, like, I want to make this a series where like I interview people about like how they got their job in publishing and what publishing and like working here is like. I probably will do a video in the future about the challenges I've faced so far being a person of color in publishing, because there are so many things that need to change in order to make this a more sustainable industry for marginalized people. But this was supposed to be a very short video on how I got into publishing and how I, like, what my path was, so that people can see sort of like how people fall into their jobs. And yeah, I'm gonna try to continue to make this a series. I'm gonna try to interview a lot of my friends who also work in the industry and also from different companies. I think I'm gonna lean, especially when this is all over, more toward like work week in my life, look at what publishing is like and what it is to be in a publishing office kind of stuff, because I do feel like there's a lack of that kind of content and I think it would be helpful to people looking to work in the industry. That was my very long publishing journey story. If you have any questions about working in publishing, like I said, I am coming from the lens of like working in the Canadian industry, so it's quite different from working in the US from what I've heard from other people I've spoken to. If you have any questions about working in social media and publishing, also here to talk to you about that, because I feel like a lot of booktubers, y'all could be doing this. I will talk to you guys later. My next video is gonna be me reading the selection, which I'm currently doing for House Salt Book Club, but I'm actually planning to read the whole series because I am a glutton for punishment, but I'm actually kind of enjoying the read. Hot take. I hope this was helpful to at least one person, or interesting in the very least. I feel like I was talking about myself for so long, which is kind of gross, but whatever. It's my channel, so if you're not here for me, what are you here for? I will see you guys later. I need to end this video. Goodbye. Bye, guys.